I am Quo, and we greet you today in the love and the light of our one infinite Creator. We are so pleased to have yet another opportunity to work with this group and to provide an analysis from above that might help you as you wend your way through the cycle of lessons that attends the third density experience, whose intensity we well remember. This leads us to a cautionary item, and that is one you all know, we feel it is our duty to reiterate. When we come from the place where we start in this communication, we are skipping over lessons that lie before you, lessons that only you can learn in your evolutionary path. And as such, we would not take those lessons away by providing our perspective in a way that serves as a stumbling block to you. So we ask once more, discretion, discrimination, your own sense of truth, which you have worked so hard to achieve in your life. This means more than any vantage point we could provide. And if you have not this grounding of truth within your heart, all we will provide are novelties at best, and detours at worst. There is no danger. There is only the care with which we wish to approach this working, a similar care that you bring, and we are so grateful for that we cannot help but take pains to do our part to meet you where you're at, to meet you on the field of the open heart, where all of our discoveries are yielded back up to the one infinite Creator, and where meaning and purpose have their true source. So we thank you for your judgment in choosing those words we say, which resonate with you. We feel free, having said this, to move on to the topic at hand. We would like to remind this instrument, whose mind is full to bursting with thoughts on this subject, to remember that there is a tone in the scale that he may intone to empty out the mind, to make it a vessel for something new that he has failed to appreciate in the past. And we trust that with the information he has learned recently, he can stand aside and allow us to have our say. And we chuckle a bit, for we know he has had his say many times. So we begin with the density in which you move about your lessons at this moment. It is a density of self-consciousness. It is a density in which the individual attains primacy, and through which the mystery of being is manifested in the yellow ray sense. This is where you are focused, although all of the rays are available. It is in the yellow ray that the evolutionary work, the ferment, is located. For you are aware of the self, and you are aware of the other self. And this creates the condition in which association can achieve a deeper meaning than in the second density. You have seen the patterns of behavior that arise from the patrimony of your animal selves, the gifts that you gave to your future self as the plant, as the animal, who needed no guidance to understand their place in the network of entities that is the creation. And now, with a spirit complex driving you towards the upward spiraling light once more, you must take account of this, not intellectually, although there is a place for the conscious mind's arrangement of the energies, of the interests and concerns, but on a deeper level, it is the place of the individual within the group, within the society, the planetary matrix of sub-logoi. It creates the unique experiences in which the individual contrasts itself with the greater mystery. And this feeling, not your builded structures of organizations, not even your ethics of relationship one to another, but this underlying vibration is the key to understanding the value to be gained by participating in the yellow ray matrix of third density. It is said that these opportunities for relating one to another are often decorated, shall we say, with the conflict, with the bellicosity, and with the desire for control that is part of what you are struggling with at this time as individuals who seem to be so self-concerned that you cannot see the forest for the trees, cannot see the collective task at hand that would express the individual with so much more purpose and meaning than you can provide yourself. Indeed, this yearning for the fully activated individual, not as a singularity, but as a network of energy, a hierarchical consciousness that does not partake of rigidity, is what you yearn for, and why it is necessary we correct this instrument. Why it might feel necessary at times to resist, to activate a particular kind of frequency in the tone that issues from the yellow ray energy center. This is not an aberration. This is part of the balancing that you are learning so that you can walk the tightrope that is expected of you when all walls fall, when all ideas present themselves in what now must seem to you as a cacophony of information. The organization is the, shall we say, circuit board, the distillation of gilded structures of light that serve to, when rightly understood, provide a temporary arrangement of consciousnesses so that something unique and not of one person may issue. If you can look at your workplace, your groups, your families, your conversations at the bar, instead of as different instances of yellow ray, you can see the commonality in them. You will begin to appreciate what we are trying to convey from our vantage point in the fourth, in the fifth, and in the sixth densities. For it does not look very different once you get beyond the veil. It is relatively clear where you bump your heads. It is relatively easy to see the virtue of the stub toe. And the trivial nature of some of the superficial harmonies you are able to achieve as you relate one to another, creator to creator. We would not emphasize our view, for you are at the level at which you are learning the valuable lessons. We only mean to suggest a wider perspective. It's a perspective that we share so that conflict, that could be said to be a crucial part of the human institution, can be appreciated for what it teaches instead of avoided for what it prevents. In third density, you are not, as this instrument would say, here for the win. You are here to be humbled, to have your feet knocked out beneath you. And this somewhat intense form of humiliation is only intensified when the onlookers murmur to themselves. We know well, everybody in this room, all of them, have had this experience, and it has attenuated the heart's engagement with the social form. That is entirely sympathetic and appropriate. But our topic for today leads us to point not at the outer form of the social construct, but to what is held within that form. What draws you back as a fly to the flame. It is your path, my brothers and sisters, to learn to use the social form, the organization, the institution, as, in a way, an athanor for the spirit and mind, such as you understand it in third density. For this is your most challenging opportunity to engage the spirit complex. You may reach far into the heavens as a hermit, but you will not build social memory that way. And so, when you find yourself at odds with your comrade, we only ask that you look at this third energy center within you and take an inventory of what you are bringing to the match. My friends, it would be utterly useless for us to suggest that you do not place upon the table between you and your brother or sisters a golden expectation that you demand occupy their attention. We only ask that you too look at it. For this is how we can use what those of Ra have called the doubling effect to create an opportunity for communion, for intensification of those elemental and ethereal energies that you can, if you are diligent, so freely bring to every situation. We are speaking of a way to think of humility that allows you to be fully an individual, to be fully a self with its own dreams, with its own intentions, and even its own surreptitious agenda. And instead of offering it to your other selves with a blanket over it that seeks to obscure the true end you seek, to remove the veil from it, to make it an act of the open heart, and therefore to humble oneself before the Creator in each of your associates. To, as the Master known as Jesus said, turn the other cheek, not just when you are struck in anger, when you are struck in rejection, when you are struck with mockery, when you are struck with a simple inability to give as well as to get, which you so crave. This mutuality, my brothers and sisters, is on the menu. But there are courses before the main entree. There is preparation to do in the kitchen. There is, in short, work on the self that makes possible social memory that each group we previously named shows a facet of. We do not mean to make this seem so fancy and haughty. We mean to contextualize the depth of frustration you can feel, to take responsibility for it, to take responsibility for freeing your brothers and sisters from having to rip the veil off the expectation and to make it plain. And in this way, you can set an example of the Father's plan for how entities within the creation shall relate. We have used another term for this, relating, and that is the concept of service. Service is easy to see in the organization, but we hope we have offered another angle on what it is that you are accomplishing. When you seek to join hands with your other selves, to work in common, and to somehow, against all odds, against all of the difficult energies that everyone brings to the table, to yet dream a common dream. Now this has political connotations for this instrument. So we ask him to put those aside. And instead, to see that the dream is the issue of the work. The reward follows the accomplishment. And while it may, correct this instrument, while it may seem cruel, but this life seems to afford so much expectation of accomplishment and so little reward. The more you can walk this path in faith, the more you show the potential that lies on the other side of that veil of sorrows which all see in the near term. And so you build a temple with your brothers and sisters. You sanctify the grubby intercourse of what seems to attend yellow ray activity. You place a golden expectation on the table in the center that calls to their highest aspirations their most refined sense of self, buried deep. And though they may not follow, for individual free will is the name of the game, as this instrument might say. What is the evolutionary experience, my friends, but the free, generous, and perpetual offering of opportunity? What would service mean without this? Indeterminate outcome of the opportunity. If it were all assured from the beginning, there would be no test. And if there is no test, there is no knowledge. There is no certainty. And my friends, what lies ahead of your planet requires not knowledge of the true nature of all, but a steadfast grip on your part, your piece of the puzzle. So rejoice at your petty squabbles. And glory in the way they wear you down, exhaust you, throw you into despair. And do not worry if this higher perspective is forgotten from time to time. You are in the thick of it. And you can only learn for the self at the end of the day. The group consciousness is a precious flower. You can only plant the seed on the ground that you stand on, and the Creator does the rest. Whether that Creator be an outside force, as you might conceive of it, or the gleam of love in your brother's eye, the blue sparkle of hope in your sister's voice. We are those of Kuo. At this time, we would ask if this group might have a query with which we may work. We will wait.
I'll take a stab at a query. Cool. Can you speak to the relative virtue of working in the context of institutions or organizations as contrasted with working one-on-one or two-on-two, merely individual to individual, without the support of institutions.
Yes, my brother, we are those of Kuo. We are aware of your query. We ask once more for this instrument to take a small step aside and to trust that the ball will be caught. The virtue of the institutional work lies in the energy issuing from it, lies in the finer threads of connection that can be woven through the mundane, daily, detailed work. For the institution is a kind of disciplining structure. Do you not wonder at how inevitably powerful and inevitable, we correct this instrument. It is simply that the institution seems to be made of stone. And yet, what is it? But your brothers and sisters playing a role in manifesting it moment to moment. The virtue of this organized way of channeling light and love is in what finer, more refined, higher energies can resonate with the lower work. Something that would transcend the individuals. Most entities have had an experience within an institution in which they, we correct this instrument, from time to time feel taken out of themselves. This is, of course, a more focused experience in the one-to-one and in the small, intimate group. You are walking on a very narrow path in the orange ray relation to the other self, or the simple yellow ray small group. But spiritually speaking, the institution requires you to walk the tightrope, as we mentioned previously in this working. So, this may provide some context for the different feelings and the sense in which one can often lose oneself in the larger organization, especially in those cases where the organizing principles have a solidity to them that may be described as dogmatic or simply enforced at the metaphorical end of the gun, so to speak. Whereas the small group does not need such a gravity well to keep the planets in orbit, as you might say. And we believe that this provides the start of an answer to the exploration of this question, which we encourage the questioner to explore further using an entire lifetime of experience to reflect upon. And we hope, perhaps, we have offered a slightly different vantage point to look at the value of a lifetime of accomplishment in the group. We are those of Kuo, and if there is another question, related or different, we make ourselves available to it at this time. We are again with this instrument, and we are those of Kuo. We thank this group for the energy it has offered this instrument and our principle, which once again finds itself the recipient of the greater portion of the learning. We offer the observation that we study your planet's unique social intercourses with great interest. And while we hope for a transition to fourth density that requires as little discomfort and sorrow as possible, we assure you that on the other side of this story that you are writing, you will look back and see a life well lived, and you will perhaps be at a level where, like us, it will not be clear which of those lessons were purely individual and which were social. For my brothers and sisters, these distinctions are not so useful to our service to you. And we might suggest the contemplation of whether they are always and ever so useful to you, even as you sit here this morning. And with that thought, we thank this instrument for taking an ever so slight step aside. It is not so difficult, is it? And we thank this group for its steadfast support, its patience, and we now take our leave, only in manifestation, never, ever in spirit, leaving you in the love and the light of our one infinite Creator. Adonai, we are those of Kuo. Adonai.
I am the circle and you are healing me. I am the circle and you are healing me. United people, we are one. United people, we are one. I am the circle and you are healing me. I am the circle and you are healing me. United people, we are one. United people, we are one.
Well done. Now there's more work to be done, but that'll suffice.
Well done.